We have multiple Toronto Maple Leafs updates to go over today surrounding Cal Yarncroc. Pretty devastating update on his front, as well as Austin Matthews. The situation's getting a little bit concerning. Sort of break all that down in this episode, but before we get into it, if you're part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, about 70% of you who are watching aren't subscribed. This is the place to be for daily Leafs content. So make sure to hit the subscribe button as we're on the road to 14,000 subscribers. So Darius, it was, again, the Leafs don't play till Wednesday. They only play once this week, and we were expecting a bit of a slow news day, and that did not happen. As we have a couple of huge updates, and one of them, or the first one we're going to focus on, is Cal Yarncroc. We'll get into Austin Matthews, later in the video. There's an interesting thing regarding him. But we've been talking about Cal on the channel for a while and discussing how all the verbiage that the coaching and the front office is using is hinting to the fact that he's going to be out long term. And that is exactly what happened, and that's Austin Matthews. We'll get into that in a minute. But the Leafs announced that Cal Yarncroc underwent groin and sports hernia surgery and is now considered month to month in his recovery. He's yet to play a game this season. I think we covered him a few videos ago, maybe last week. It's a rough one, and obviously, again, the Leafs are privileged to have a lot of depth at the forward position, so they have guys like Kyrou. We've had even Alex Steeves step up a little bit, Steven Lorentz. What are your thoughts on this news? Cal Yarncroc's going to be out for a very long time, and it's doubtful now if he's even going to play this season.
Yeah, I think the Leafs are blessed this season with a lot of forward depth, like you said. Even Pacioretty's out right now, and they've been okay, and they've been winning games, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, on Kyle Yarncroc's front, I mean, this is pretty disappointing, I guess, for the player. Coming into training camp, I think all of us were expecting him to be in the lineup. Everyone was kind of penciling him in and trying to find out where he was going to play. And obviously something happened in training camp or maybe before then, and then it got a little bit worse. And yeah, this is not good news. And we heard last week, I think we touched on it in a video last week, maybe even 2 weeks ago. And the first place I heard it was from Nick Barden, that he did have a sports hernia. And it turns out to be true that he does have a sports hernia. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, you know what, this is probably going to have to go, he's going to have to get surgery. And then from there, he's going to have to recover from the surgery. Then he has to start skating again. This is going to be a long recovery. I mean, there is a world where he plays again this season. There is a world, but he would have to recover pretty quickly and be, you know, if you don't want to throw a guy like this into the playoffs, right? Especially after everyone's gone through a whole season and the, you know, how physical the playoffs get. So I do wonder if he ever plays again this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That is very much up in the air right now. But yeah, I think there is a world where he does end up playing, but this is going to be a long recovery at this point, month to month. We might not see this player for the rest of the year.
I mean, you think about what the Leafs can do now. I mean, I don't even know, even if he's healthy by the end of the season, if they'd even factor him into a couple games. I mean, maybe if some players are not playing quite up to par, but you'd suspect, with, of course, Connor Dewar returning, depending how, you know, Alex Steeves and Steven Lorentz, a lot of these guys. But also, there's a trade deadline now. Whether they add a wing is still up in the air. They have a lot of them, but if they want to solidify a little bit, maybe get a third line center, there's still a lot of different things they could do. They probably need a third line center the most out of all these positions, but I mean, there's not a lot of room for Cal Yarncroc here to play again this season. And it's very unfortunate. And it seems like Yarncroc and his $2.1 million cap hit, and it will, of course, remain on the LTIR. But you rewind back when we were making videos during training camp, and again, we were factoring him into our mock lineup, on the live streams about how he's going to play a big factor. Ultimately, him going out opened up a spot for Steven Lorentz, who ultimately has been playing very good this season on the fourth line. So, again, next man up mentality, but it's very unfortunate that this is the case. And it's more unfortunate that he's out month to month, but it seemed like the writing was on the wall there for a while, especially given the fact that he, again, there was never any concrete updates since the season started about his availability. We knew he was going to be out, and ultimately sports hernia, month-to-month recovery. And now we just see how he does for the rest of the year and maybe focus on next season for him. But any final thoughts on Yarncroc? It's unfortunate, but it's, again, next man up mentality. It's been like that the entire year for this team as they've dealt with a lot of injuries, even dating back, like you mentioned, before the season started.
Yeah, on the other side of things, I think Brad Living did a really good job in preparing for life without a player like this, because this is a player who can play throughout your lineup. Again, I wasn't a big fan of him coming into the season because I thought that the Leafs needed to solidify their lineup a little bit more and know what each line brought and add some more identity. But, you know, this is a guy who can come in and help. So we'll see if he factors into the playoffs at all. I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea, but injuries happen, right? Bobby McMahon missed the entire playoffs last year. So we'll see what happens when we get there, because there is a world he does end up playing for the Leafs at some point this season, but I don't think we're going to get an update on this guy for quite a while. But I think what, you know, Brad Living, again, on the other side of things, has done with the team in his absence is pretty good. They're playing really, really well. They have a lot of depth in a lot of areas. And a guy like Alex Steves just comes in when Pacioretty gets hurt. They're obviously missing Yarncroke. They're pretty deep. So, and they've been playing well. They're second in the Atlantic right now, and they could end up in first at the end of this month. So they've been playing really well.
Yeah, it was with the 632 win percentage this year on the season. And it also goes to show that the PTOs of Lorentz and Max Pacioretty were very, very well done by Brad Treliving because, again, he knew or he had some hint that injuries were going to plague this team. But speaking of injuries plaguing the team, Matthews will not play against Vegas this week. He has not been on the ice the last few days, says he's not getting worse. So what we thought was at the latest would be last Wednesday or even Tuesday, kind of what they were saying. Missed both of those games. He's missing Wednesday as well. Now, there's a couple things to go over here, and Craig Berube spoke out. Craig Berube says Austin Matthews didn't skate the last couple of days, so now that's more than a week off the ice. It's a little bit of a holding pattern, but he's not getting worse, so that's a good thing. It's just taking time. It's taking long, but it is what it is. So, I mean, a little bit concerning. Again, I don't think his injury is going to be something that lasts a long time. That being said, it's already lasting a lot longer than both of us thought it was going to. However, they are off the entire week besides Wednesday, so clearly they just want to give him as much time as possible before, as we've mentioned on the channel a few times now, December comes along and is going to hit the Leafs like a truck because they play a ton of games. I think they play 4 games in the first week of December. A lot of games there. He's still not playing though, Darius. It's an interesting one here.
Yeah, and December is really busy now that you brought that up. It is a very busy month for the Leafs, but the end of this month, not so much. So the fact that it got past last Tuesday, which was kind of the penciled in date by, I guess, management and what we heard from Berube that he was going to return. The fact that it got past that day, I'm not really surprised that he's still out. This is clearly something that is agitating him. Like it's just not going away. I am very interested into what this is. And Matthews is a very private person. Like I think there's people in the organization that literally actually don't even know what's going on with him because he is a very private person, even teammates. Like I'm not even sure if they know. He does not like injuries getting out, specifically him. We hear a lot about other players. And of course the NHL does a lot of the weird upper body, lower body thing now that, nobody has any idea what's going on, but he's a very private person, doesn't like it to get out, but he's clearly working on it. He hasn't skated, and they're saying that it hasn't gotten worse. But that quote from Berube is very interesting to me because it hasn't gotten worse, but he hasn't been on the ice in a few days. That's weird. You'd think that he'd be working at it, and the fact that it's an upper body injury, I'm getting a little bit worried, I think, at this point, because he's out a little bit longer than we thought. And yes, you want him to get to 100%, and I still believe that. I keep him out until he's 100%. But this is now week to week. I believe it started day to day. I can't remember, Nick. I thought it was day to day. Now we're going week to week. I wonder if this goes month to month. I am getting a little bit worried at this point because, again, he's not skating. They're saying it's not getting worse, but is it healing?
Yeah, and hopefully it is because, again, we want to get Austin Matthews, Leafs back on track, especially considering, again, 11 points this year. I mean, he's been off to a pretty slow start for his standards, only 5 goals in 13 games. And the biggest conversation was, will Austin Matthews be able to, snap back into form? And unfortunately hasn't had the chance to do so. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on that. A lot of interesting news coming out. Of course, we'll have a video later today on another big situation in Toronto Maple Leafs land. Stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys later.